Jeff.
I'm dedicated to the. I want to finish Pokemon Go. I have 12 more levels to go. I'm higher level than Estelle now. You ever think about doing the Pokemon Lounge? Dude, look at this guy, Mighty Ina. Because it would be more interesting, I think, than snowboarding in some ways. Are we doing this?
Yeah, we're doing this. Welcome to the Riders Lounge. I'm Shane Johnsen, and today I'm with my good buddy, JP, Jeff Pensiero from Baldface. And because he is the purveyor of powder, we're going to discuss powder snowboards today.
Can't wait. Shane, let's talk powder snowboards.
All right, Jeff, so you and I go back a long ways, and probably, geez, we met in 97, 98, somewhere around there. You had the red Toyota roll into town. We got to play some guitar.
What kind of motor was in that Toyota?
22R.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Good, Shane.
Souped up 22R, man.
Yeah.
I know this stuff. We played some guitar together, and then, you know, things happen. I end up working for you at Baldface, but the one thing inside of all of this...
We worked together at Baldface.
We worked together.
It's not like that.
You were kind of the boss,
now it's
man.
like that. Yeah.
We had some times back in the 90s and early 2000s there. But the one thing with you and why I wanted to talk powder snowboards, I don't want to do a top 5, a top 10. I just want to talk about the evolution of powder snowboards. And who better to do that with than you? You've kind of been privy to all of it. You get sent amazing stuff to R&D up there.
Yeah.
You've had influence on Glissade. You've had influence on a ton of brands. So let's kind of...
Generous.
Well, no, you have. I mean, a lot of folks probably don't know you were the Glissade rep, and probably the first, what was it, a 185 Glissade?
Well, we had 195s. We had 195, 185, 175, and the shortboard was a 165.
Because I show up to Baldface on a 6.5, and at my size, and I thought I had a big board. And that was, yeah.
I was riding a 175 Glissade when I started it. And they were really big and really stiff, and they had like these ears on the front of them, so the effective edge went past the contact point and then back in.
Yes, I remember.
And you had to really be aggressive with those boards to get them to even turn. They were, guys like Tex Davenport and, they were Elon Bouchel. Those guys were riding those boards straight fucking down, really steep terrain. Turning and jumping wasn't really a part of the conversation.
And that's what we had, that's kind of what we were doing back then for surface area. And Fawcett's talked about this, where we had these massive long boards, but they were all camber. So the effort to get these things on edge was pretty serious at times.
Well, and the bindings were really shitty then too. Are we going to talk about old? Is this like old guys talking about
well,
old?
it's kind of old heads.
Let me tell you about the boots.
We'll evolve to...
All right. I had Airwalk boots that had shoes inside of the boots. That was where it was going. So it was like an Airwalk boot, and then you took the boot off, but you had like a shoe on to like drink beer in. And that was like a whole season in those things. And I wonder why I'm getting cortisone shots in my ankles.
And your knees, how's your knee feeling?
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
More old guy stuff.
Yeah,
old heads
injection
talking
yesterday,
powder.
and I'm feeling really ready to work out again.
That's
now.
awesome,
Yeah.
Jeff. But so we kind of start with the Glissade boards. So it's, late 90s. That's what we were doing in powder. We were riding long boards.
Well, let's start with Glissade, but you gotta talk about, for me, like Lib at the same time was really, the Litigator was out.
Yep.
The M Appeal was out. Litigator was like a 72. I think the M Appeal was a 68. Then they had the Grosser and the Doughboy Shredder, and occasionally you'd see these guys that were like, if you want to ride powder, you need a really long snowboard. Yep. And two schools of thought even back then was like, you'd ride a really long snowboard set way, way back. And some guys would even like T-bolt an extra set to just have like yards of nose.
Yep.
And then some people would ride really long snowboards, but like perfectly centered. So they could still like trick on those snowboards and go really, really fast in the powder and launch it off. So I think Glissade and Lib, there was like Rad Air made some really long boards, kind of European
and Winter
style.
Stick, of course,
Winter
if
Stick
we're really going
shapes.
back. Yeah.
So there's always been this little like powdery thing, but of course, all the attention kind of went to the skateboarding side of the world, the Boreal side of the world. and the boards actually got shorter. Guys were like cutting them off.
Now we're moving into the 2000s, yeah.
And wider stances and really more like kind of skateboard inspired riding and tricks in smaller terrain took over for a while. And that's when Jamie had his like, whale board and,
Well, that's still 90s. Yeah, we were T-bolting wide stances. And we did get shorter for a while there. But by the time, say, I got to Baldface riding, I was working for Mervyn that year too, and the Dark series had just come out. Sidewalls were back out, and I had a 6'4", I believe. Remember the Dark series?
Yeah.
And Jamie had done the graphic on it, had that little flower on the nose. The thing was so nice. So that's what I was riding a lot. So we were still into long boards.
Yeah, we were still riding 68s and 75s and stuff like that. 66s.
And even my, I'll pull a unique one out here. So this was something that any of us early crew at Baldface
I was riding
a little dust on her
This
here.
all kind of started when, so let's see, Craig was involved and I was riding these big long boards. And then like,
Look at the
an
dust.
angel from heaven, JG, started sending boards to me, and I felt so honored. It was crazy, and I was getting these supermodel 164s back then, and even before that, there was one called, I think, a BMC, and that was like a 68 or something. It was so sick. Fawcett rode one of those.
That's right.
When he was guiding.
Because the supermodel stopped for a little bit.
This was before the supermodel.
Yeah.
And then the supermodel came on. I rode that 64 supermodel, and had S camber, and it was so good. And then we would split our own snowboards and use the Volet kit. And it was always trying to find the stiffest snowboard you could find because they got so shitty after a little while.
Once you split
and then we
them
started
too,
getting
right?
these things from G. And yeah, man, I lost a lot of fingernails putting these together.
All of us. So I was we were both small guys, and this board only came in a 6'5" or 6'5". We've gotten a little bigger, but yeah, back then I was probably, Jeff, only 140 pounds, and I was lugging this big 165 splitty around, chasing buffery, doing whatever we had to do for pre-season checklists. And this was kind of the first powder riding that this was the first evolution. Because we had to be on split boards, because did that not
Well, I think what they did is, this is like a regular snowboard.
This was a custom,
and put this stuff on it. So this is just a custom, which was a little weird. Because they made the supermodel at this point, which was a little bit more
Which would have been better.
This was set back a little further. There was a little teeny bit of taper, I think. But the game changed when we started getting these things, right? And this was like, I heard this story that Terrier and JG had been working on this like kind of surfy, weird idea. And we started getting these, they were black only. And they had a little, they're up at the lodge, but there's a little scribble on the side where G would write stuff. And I think Terrier brought one out, and then G started sending them out. And this is what changed everything, because it's really tapered in the tail. This one's actually still pretty wide in the tail, but they were really tapered, really fat nose on them. The side cuts set way back. They were way shorter. So all of a sudden you were riding like a 54 or a 56 fish. They even had a 52 fish, 48 fish. And at Baldface, people were still kind of figuring it out, snowboarding wise. And we would take people that were good riders, but they hadn't really experienced like a shape. And we would put them on this thing. And it was like they went from being an intermediate to being an advanced rider.
Remember Jerry Lopez on this thing the first time he was up there? I was with him. I was with Heath guiding him. And Lopez on the first fish, that was something to see.
That was a good day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the fish, G started like, they had this little, it's called Craig's now, but they had their factory there, and G had his own little corner in it. And we would get these like boxes of weird shaped boards. And there was no explanation, no nothing. And it would be kind of fishy, but like a different nose, or fishy with a little V in the tail.
And the names were always crazy too, because there was a piranha, yeah.
So we'd get to try all these weird boards, but then the next one that came out was the Malolo, which I rode for a few years.
Yeah, I wish we had one here. We'll drop one in somewhere.
Got some up at the lodge.
Everybody knows that board.
The 58 Malolo was so good. It was such a great board. I had the 54 and the 58, kind of went between the two.
Yep.
And man, that board, you could just like sink the tail in and use it as a brake. You can do it on this too, but there's not much tail on this. But the Malolo, I remember you could go like exit things really, really fast and just step on your back foot and it would brake going straight instead of having to brush speed on it. So all of a sudden you could ride trees way faster and you could like get into a chute or something a little bit sketchy, and instead of trying to like skitter your way through it, you could just really like modulate your way through. I thought that was a big game changer, evolution from the fish to
Yeah,
the
because
Malolo.
now we were getting into shifted volume, basically. So now
what
those...
you call it in the shop?
Yeah, you know, shifted volume.
shifted
Shifted
volume,
volume.
Yeah.
So this was happening now into the early 2000s. Yeah, and I remember you would get sent so many cool boards.
Yeah, there was
come and
rad.
show us, and
Yeah.
it kept evolving. Then we started to see a little bit
And the
of...
split boards kept getting better and
That's
better
right.
and better.
That's where I
too.
was just about to go.
Yeah.
So then also, and I just want to let the viewers know too, Jeff's guides have to be on split boards. Those guys aren't out there riding solid boards. So you've been a part of sort of helping that evolution of split boarding move along too, because your guys give a lot of R&D to the brands.
Yeah. Or we break a lot of shit when
Yeah.
it's not done right.
Yeah.
And brands are really great about hearing that stuff. The cool thing about snowboarding is great, but knowing the guys behind the scenes that are like pulling the strings to get things made, when they get a pipeline to a guy like Heath or Demian or Buff or any one of the guides that are up there riding them every day, Andy Affleck, I could go down forever. All these guides put in hundreds of days on these boards. And when something's breaking like consistently, or they're getting consistent stuff, I think it's super easy for them to say, let's just tweak this, let's tweak that. And so we've got to be a part of that evolution year over year over year. And it's really kind of just another facet of the fun of riding every day in complex terrain.
It's cool. The end result is the consumer then is getting a product that's kind of been filtered through, some heavy duty
There's
dudes.
a reason split boards don't have that interface anymore.
That's right.
Yeah,
and there's a reason that sort of spring break evolved too.
Yeah, I mean, the spring break boards are great because they were just yet another kind of whole different way of looking at what we were trying to create. And I think
Ball set cores, really,
and
really
the shapes
unique.
were super weird. And Corey's a really like interesting, innovative guy from California who rode really deep, great POW that turned into pretty heavy POW pretty quick. And then he got to take those ideas. I know he came out a couple times and they brought some of those boards out, and then riding those boards in like lighter snow, maybe steeper terrain with kind of more
That's
complex
where the
stuff.
early ones ruled.
Right.
They were
It was
so
like,
fun.
We were all like, oh my God, these guys are, it was like riding a fish again. You were like, oh, this
Well,
is
I have
whole
a
nother
powder
evolution.
pill still that I've kept pristine for
Even
that
the catamaran
reason.
rode really good. And the one with the hole in the back, that didn't ride so good.
For those of you that have made it to the lodge, you'll see Jeff has a bunch of spring break on the wall.
I'm a hoarder.
And early, oh yeah, no, and it's awesome to see that. And we might be able to drop some photos into that. But yeah, okay, we went too far. I got excited there.
Okay, going back after the Malolo, the next thing that happened was, just because I'm going to make it all about myself right now.
Yeah, as you should.
Was I got on a board called the Black Snowboard of Death that TJ Schneider had and Blue brought out. And that board changed my whole life because I was so sure that this shifted volume thing was, where it was going, and we were all going to be riding boards with crazy shapes forever and all this stuff. And the Black Snowboard of Death kind of looks like a regular board, except it's squared off, and it had this like funny like tooth, on the side. So like
so we're
it
talking
had side cut, but it kind of had a little like tooth right in the middle of it.
Death grip.
And that thing had a flex pattern that was still, I've never ridden anything like it. They accomplished that shifted volume thing by having a crazy weird flex pattern to the board. And then that evolved into the Charlie Slasher, which was kind of Capita's version of a
Another dirty board here, but yes.
This is their version of a Malolo, kinda, an evolution of it. This was quite a few years later. And they were nice enough to make a bunch for the Lodge series of them that were super rad.
Yeah, these were just fantastic.
And these boards still, I got people coming up to the Lodge that got them from us that are like, this is the only board I want to ride in the powder. Yep. A lot of people really believe this could be one of the greatest. That Charlie Slasher, year 1, year 2.
Oh yeah.
And they made it too, and it had like angry creatures like scratching your eyes out on it. Remember?
Yeah, that was the first one. Yep.
And man, if you see one of those in the thrift store or something and it's in good shape, that's probably one worth picking up.
Yeah,
No
and
shit,
that's a
like-
good thing to bring up. Anything we are talking about here, if you find these in the wild, they're still great riding boards and
Yeah.
something to get your hands on. And sometimes, I mean, you're not going to find one of these for cheap, but sometimes you'll find some of the others. Malolos are out there in the wild still. But this, I mean, I've kept this board for damn good reason. This is incredible. And a cool note about these is they had a birch stringer. They had a sidewall built into the core, and you can kind of see it here,
That's right there.
a little bit indented. So you could split this. This is before Capita was making split boards. I have a new Navigator here, which I'll be riding this year. But this was really cool. You just take the bandsaw to it, skill saw, whatever, jigsaw, cut it in half, and boom, you had your split board. But yeah, this was, I thought, radial saw,
circular
grinder,
saw, whatever you want. Yeah, I forgot about that. I never did it, but yeah. So then we started riding those Capitas for a few years, probably like a 4 or 5 year run there, just screwing around between the Black Snowboard to Death and the Charlie Slasher, and then that's when the Spring Break started coming out towards the end of that era, and monkeying around on those things. And yeah, the cool part about those was that they accomplished a lot of the same things that Burton was accomplishing with shape, with like flex and things. And at the end of the day, it just was always fun to be like, what are they trying to accomplish? And it takes a few days or weeks to figure out the board. And then once you figured out how that board rides really good, you were like, oh, I get it now. And whether that's a Spring Break or a Capita or a Lib or Glissade or Burton, like the designers are designing the board, not for me, they're designing it for a purpose. And it's as a rider, you got to get on it and be like, am I really torsionally flexing this thing, or am I tweaking it this way, or am I trying to put my weight on the nose? Or so getting into trying to figure out how that stuff works is always really fun.
Yeah, no, and I envy that your backyard, when you're up there, gets to be, I mean, we all know how good it is. So, I'm moving through quivers. We talk about quivers on the show all the time. Jeff's quiver gets to be kind of a quiver of POW machines.
But the ridiculous thing is I ride the same board like all the time. I could.
Yeah, true.
But
true.
I really enjoy being like, this is the board.
Once you figure out for that season.
But then just like figuring it out and riding it in different conditions and going to different places with it, and being like, how's this ride here? Take it into the hill. And sometimes like you run into Fawcett and you're like, man, I can't get the heel edge to bite, and he'll look at my stance and be like, you know what you should do is try this. And then I think it's really fun, like getting to know a board like intimately well, as opposed to, I used to just ride like different boards every time I went out, different stances.
I do agree with this, yeah.
And now I'm really like, I really enjoy like really intimately getting to know like that board, and then maybe change it up once in a while, but not that much.
There's one that you and I are both riding a lot that we'll talk about shortly. Okay, so let's not get off track here. So we get into we're almost shifted volume. Shifted volume is about to happen now. All of a sudden, enter the Yes 420 and Jamie's Short Fat, and that kind of era of the really packaged shifted volume boards. So, and that's a cool story too, because as far as I remember,
why I just had to have my knee ejected, I think, to be perfectly honest.
Really?
But yeah, those things like when the 420 came out and eventually the 2020, Alex Warburton was working for those guys, and he's like incredible rider, and then he's really translated that into being able to like create innovative shapes for Yes and for other people too. And like we got on those things and it was like cheating. It was like snowboarding got so easy, and it was like 5 centimeters of snow feels like it's 30 centimeters of snow. And the problem is you start riding like you're in 30 centimeters of snow and sending it off of everything, and just it kind of makes flat landings flatter. And it kind of makes steep landings a little bit flat, and you're just having so much fun because they're so short and fat that you're just trying tricks and jumping off everything. But I also kind of beat the hell out of myself in that era.
Yep.
And then Jamie decided like, hey, that's pretty rad. I'm going to make one of those. And so of course I got on one of those, and riding with Jamie's like as much fun as everybody would imagine it is. It is.
It's a workout too.
I'm no Jamie
It's a
Lynn.
workout, yeah.
He's not, he's a hard guy to follow around the mountain. And he clears a lot of the shit that I'm in, and I fall through it while he's airing over it. So yeah, that era came. It's still around. They still make the Short Fat, and there's a lot of people that really love that board and are really excited when they see it up at the lodge. I think it's a bit of a niche, and really those guys I find are like either guys with really big feet. Love that board because they don't have to ride such a long board.
These boards were 27, even 28 at the waist a lot of the time because, again, volume shifted, so we're packaged shorter, but we got really wide to have a 52, say, to have the same surface area of a 62.
Even a 48, 46, they make them pretty short.
And then you'd have the surface area of a 60 and something sub 50.
So guys with massive feet have found that, man, I love that thing. I can still trick it, and especially as they get older and stuff.
Yeah.
And then people who don't really like air that much, that just really like to kick out an epic heel side turn, going like as fast, a short board, you can pick up speed really fast, and it doesn't really go that fast.
It's a great hangover board.
It's just
it's
like a super fun
board.
POW day board. 100% worth giving it a try and spending some time on those. What did you call it? Shapeshifter? Shift?
Volume shifted.
Volume shift. Yeah, weird
Volume
short fat boards.
shifted. Short,
yeah, they're great. They're great. But just don't jump off of every little thing you see with them. But you can smash into trees and snow ghosts in them and stuff like that. They're
well, and
really
I just
fun
always
boards.
thought if somebody was having like an off day, they always made that off day turn rad.
Yeah,
it
they
just everything got good.
Totally.
You know, yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so then we evolve into, you know, enter
What do
the
we evolve
pitcher,
into
Mr. Well, Travis Rice kind of enters the pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
And Travis spends some time, well, we know Travis rides a lot of powder, but he starts designing and he
shows up
gets
with this
on
like
to LibTech. And
shows up with this weird. Travis's boards are. I'll let you in on a secret, and the shop guys probably won't like it very much. But like, I love Travis. Is a good guy and a good friend and a great snowboarder. But like, I can't ride his boards. They're just. I'm not that good. I'm not as strong as he is. I'm not as good as he is. And as much as I'd like to ride like Travis, I always kind of laughed. I was like, "You left your board here. I don't want it." You know, like. And then he shows up with a white Orca, like however many
The
6 years
original
ago.
one, yeah.
Like a
Yep, the
prototype
original.
Orca, and he goes, "I want you to ride this board." And I'm
And
like,
I remember this. I remember
Yeah.
Jeff telling me this story.
and he actually drew all over it and wrote a nice little note to me on it and everything. And
That's awesome.
he's like, "Go ride this board. It's hanging in the lodge still." And I got on that board, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on with this thing?" And I was like, looking at it sideways, looking at this weird tail and everything. And he got the biggest smile on his face. He's like, I made a board. I heard what you were saying. Like, yeah, my boards are hard to ride. And like guys like you know, you kind of need something that's a little more forgiving, still high performance. It's got all the bells and whistles and tech that I really enjoy. But I tried to make a board that like, you know, everybody can really like ride powder as good as him without having to ride his super gnarly Travis boards. Not taking anything away from him, but it's almost like I wouldn't want to drive I love watching F1. I would be terrified to jump into an F1 car.
It's a good analogy.
I'm not trained.
Yeah,
I don't know how to
it's
do
a good
it.
analogy.
Yeah, there are guys who could totally do it. They go to the track and they put the time in. That's, to me, that's Travis's boards. They're just so high end and high performance. But this is kind of like an F1 car with like a 4-cylinder motor in it and a governor on it, so that we can all have a good time on
Well,
it.
these year after year are just an amazing seller for every shop that brings these in, and they've evolved into, you know, he has the Golden, he has the Apex, but the Standard, that's, you know, that's the all day for our shop and for this zone.
The most popular board we rent out or give out at the lodge is the Orca by far.
Yeah.
Head over heels, no matter what. People know, they've tried them, they come back, they rush in off the helicopter and they're like, I want the 59, I want the 54, I want this, I want that. So
without getting into crazy tech about it, I mean, we've talked about the Orca a fair bit, but yeah, this was another game changer because exactly what Jeff said. This kind of opened things up to a lot of us that wanted to attack the terrain in the way we'd envision us if we were riding with Trav, say. And yeah, this board really achieved that. It's
I've had probably some of my best days ever on an Orca, for sure.
no, these
You got to put it flat
absolutely
though, right?
fantastic.
Can they see that? Can
Well,
they see like what's going on
So,
here? Like,
and the
what is going
profile
on
too.
there?
So with these,
What is going on with this thing?
better put my glasses on to
think you
get
gotta
it
go like
exactly.
this or something?
Yep.
That's
So yeah,
fast.
with this one, Travis came up with the Orca C2X. So it is set back. We do have the rocker in the middle, but it actually has a little bit longer camber, and that's why this will still. You can still ride a bank slalom on this board. You can still do a lot of.
I rode the
free
bank
riding.
slalom on it and I didn't win it. I don't know if it was the
How
board.
many-
I don't know if it was the board though. I think
How
it was
many
me.
duct tape do you have?
0. I have some duct tape, but I bought it down at the home hardware, and it's in my junk drawer.
That's
at home.
awesome.
Yeah.
I have not, yeah. Anyway, so we have a setback C2X basically on this one. And that's why it's kind of, you know, it'll handle all terrain, but that's why it's so supreme in powder. It really is.
It's fun and chopped up crap too. Like it's a, Orcas
is it?
are great.
The camber profile, once you give it weight, really does bite. And then we've got, you know, mellow mag throughout too. So
All right, that's enough about the Orca.
Yeah.
We don't want it to get an ego.
it's,
you know, the cool
we got
thing
a little
about
nerdy about it.
Cool thing about it too, when we were talking about like the evolution of the whole game is like, I think, again, to his credit, like this board could be your one board for everything.
Yeah.
You can go to the hill all day on this board. You can ride it on the East Coast. You can ride it at Baldface. You can go to Alaska on this thing. Like this really is the everyman's every board. And the only reason I don't ride them anymore is because I kind of had to try. I got a little too hooked on the Orca for like 4 or 5 years there. I've been riding snowboards for a long time. And you know what else is cool? They give money to orca conservation when you buy that.
do.
It's a real thing. I saw
it's
him out
awesome.
there, Travis swimming with orcas and high-fiving and stuff. It's pretty dope.
No, it's
It's pretty dope.
awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So where are we going from the Orca?
Okay, so then-
oh, I know where we're going from the Orca.
Well, should we discuss this a little?
Yeah.
'Kay.
Let's talk about the Navigator. Because, you know, Capita likes to keep its designers busy.
Exactly.
Navigator is
So
not only a split board, but it's the regular Navigator.
there is a regular, so the Charlie Slasher evolves into the Navigator series. We have the split right now, as this is a really good model for us here. But like I was going to too, discussing, a lot of Jeff's guys are only on split boards when they are guiding. So you've been on more splits than me recently. Union with this one, they've come out with this. I love these, the way they scissor and bond on this. The torsion here, they've kind of eliminated any movement whatsoever. That is a really, really slick design, and I like that this came out this year the way it did. It's really nice. But this is the evolution of the Charlie Slasher we all know. You got on this a few times, hey? The solid version? Because you're not riding a split when you go out. You can ride whatever you want. You're not tail gunning.
Yeah, I'm
you're
not riding a split that much anymore.
No, yeah, me either. I know.
I go, usually early season, I'll go like 3 or 4 days just for kind of fitness and before the cat roads are in to get stuff going. And then once in a while in the winter when we're trying to put cat roads in, I'll skin something just to put a track in. But yeah, unfortunately, I got other things going on.
Well, yeah. And it's,
But if I was going to ride a split, I may consider riding this one.
yeah, this is...
But I don't have one. But I can say this about the Navigator, the regular Navigator. It's like another evolution of the Charlie Slasher, like you said. So they just basically put a bunch more tech into a shape that was working really well.
Oh, yeah.
And I think with Capita buying that factory and like really having time understanding all the materials and stuff, their cores are maybe second to none. I don't know.
the mothership, what they're pumping out of the mothership is...
It's a really nice product.
Yeah,
It's the fit and
absolutely
finish on
premium.
these things is crazy. So yeah, there's the Navigator, I guess.
Yeah, same taper as everybody remembers from the Slasher. Redesigned in the nose recently, which I really like. And this is going to be my split board this season because I need to get out and walk off my belly more often here.
Good. Go walk off my belly while you're at it.
I-
You know a board we're not talking about? A whole company we're not talking about? Arbor made a board that was called the Terrapin for a few years.
Yep.
And that board was weird. And it rode really great in POW.
Yeah.
And it was it looked like this thing kind of. It actually looked like this, a really dramatic taper on the tail to a point. I think Carter made one called the Clovis, and
so. Yep.
Iguchi wanted to work on a powder board, and I think those guys put their heads together, worked with those guys.
yeah.
But that Arbor Terrapin is, I don't know if we can like put it in here or something, but
Yeah,
like
I've never
that's
done
a
that.
rad board, and it's
We've been waiting for those guys to send us some boards to demo too. So.
yeah, like we're kind of running through the boards that we have right here, but I could go deep into companies
Well,
like
yes.
Cardiff. Bjorn Linus is working out with that
We
company.
should pull the...
Those boards
The
are
Pagoda was
incredible.
one I wanted to make mention of.
Yep.
Two.
And they have a super weird shaped one. Somebody has to help me with it too, but that thing's super rad.
Well, the Goat and the Pagoda
I
were
rode the Goat.
two. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Goat is, well, and, you know, Pow Slash and Wiggly, he's always riding those things. Wiggles loves that board. But the Pagoda was one I really wanted to make mention of because this thing, we send a lot of demos to Valhalla Baldface, and this is the most demoed board. Everybody wants to rent this one when they head out to your zone.
These are
so
unbelievable
it's-
boards.
Yeah, we've got a good demo fleet from Cardiff, and again, this is this deserves mention. Again, tapered shape, a lot of reverse camber up in here, good camber in the back end. Almost everything we've talked about, You notice how we didn't get into skate banana or anything like that. Those were a little too loose for
What's
everything.
a skate banana?
Remember the Lib skate banana?
Homie J rode one of those.
Exactly.
No, let's just talk about, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Real snowboards made by real people. Bjorn.
Absolutely.
That's all you need to know. Because that guy literally is probably the most underrated snowboarder in the history of the whole game. And when he designs a snowboard and puts his name on it, 100% worth riding. And these are really worth riding. Another weird company that isn't like a forefront company is right next to Shane over there, Karua. And they make some really interesting POW shapes and kind of POW shapes that work well at resorts too.
Yeah,
we were all into the dart.
This I had to bring in. I was riding the dart for a while, and then they sent me a pencil. And this, when I go visit Jeff, this would be the exact setup I would take up there. No question. 5.9 pencil. This has been my #1 go-to for riding POW. I just love this board. It's stiff. It's a little narrower than I would expect my favorite POW board to be, but long, straight side cut in the front, great taper. Yeah, these guys nail it.
And the fit and finish is unbelievable on the Karuas.
No, that's a beauty for sure. I wanted to quickly discuss.
Oh, this was like the truth part of the show?
Well,
Here's
the other
truth.
thing with Jeff is every once in a while he'll start just going on a rant in the shop about bindings and this and that.
You don't need bindings to ride powder, Shane.
Exactly. I agree.
And when you're not using bindings, this is a great choice. And there are many great choices out there. And the whole thing about
Tim,
the POW,
please start making boards again.
I think he is.
I hope so.
I think the whole thing about the POW surfing kind of movement is that it goes back to where we started this conversation, where people who really love doing it are taking chances. They're not doing it just to make money and just to push product out there. This is still evolving, and there's so many different ways of looking at these. I tried those Convoy boards last year. I ride an Asmo much of the winter. I ride one of JG's boards, the Shred Eye, pretty much all the time.
Which is the evolution of the Resonator.
Right. I came up on these Sharks. I've ridden the Grassroots, and you know the thing about these is you don't need a lift ticket. You know, like these are going to be hard to get onto your local resort, and riding chop with hard pack underneath it is not a great time on them, although people do it in Europe.
Yep.
But for me, what's cool about this is like, if you don't want to pay $250 for a lift ticket and $32 for a cheeseburger and a soda pop, buy one of these babies, maybe get a pair of verts, take a level 1 little avalanche class, and just go park in the parking lot and go have the best time in like 200-300 feet of vert. Fresh POW, great turns. A little 3-foot drop is the hardest thing you've done, and when you make it, you feel like a champ. Honestly, I can't say enough about POW surfing. It's my favorite thing to do. I brought him up to Alaska last time I went. Oh, no, I was actually POW surfing crazy lines up there. Because if you're a good snowboarder, and I'm like a okay snowboarder, but if you're a good snowboarder, and then you put the time in on a POW surfer, you can do it. You can ride way gnarlier lines than you think you can. So hats off to Vole and all the pioneers like G and Tim and Jeremy and everybody else, because this is the future of riding powder.
Yep, it really is.
And the resorts hopefully will support it more as time goes by.
Exactly. All right.
Let me tell you a little story, Shane.
Are we going here? Or are we
Yeah. Can I tell you a story?
You can tell me a story.
I was up in Alaska. Have you heard of Alaska?
I've been to Alaska.
So I was up in Alaska with this crew, and I brought a, Austin Sweeten is kind of my spirit animal, and I had a Dynamo 154, and I brought it up because I was like, I can do everything on this board.
54?
Yeah, and I brought it up there. I had a 56 too, but I brought the 54 and the 56 in the bag.
That's ballsy.
And rode the first day and was doing all right, but like a little bit struggling on the runouts, And all-time crew, Billy, Hetzel, Curtis, Sivnewski, Ika,
Damn.
Jamie,
Yep.
Brian Henderson, and Jamie Weeks guiding. And Andy Hetzel comes up to me. He's like, "What are you riding, dude?" I'm like, "I'm riding Austin's board, the Dynamo. This is the shit, man. My spirit animal is Austin Sweeten. I want to ride like Austin." And he pulled out a 159 Bank Country. And he goes, "Nah, dude, this is the board." And I have not gotten off it in 3 years now.
We can both
This
attest
thing,
to that.
everywhere, everything this is the one. And no disrespect to anybody else, but all these years of Gnu and Lib making all these boards and everybody working and everything, I'm like, I just can't believe how good a snowboard this thing is.
I know.
So, you know, there you go. Nice people do finish first sometimes. Because this thing, if you really just want to go get a great snowboard for everything, this is a great place to go.
Yeah, I throw the term quiver killer around and it's silly, but it's like, it really
He could get better at drawing stars, I think. I could, like the stars could be a little better.
You know, it's...
But that's cool. I mean, just a little odd shaped, but that's all right.
But I just think...
Canon taught me what a burner account was on Instagram. And we had a lot of fun.
We had Canon on the show. It was super fun.
Yeah.
No, this board, we've talked about it too much, but I really...
You have talked about it too much? Or we just talked about it?
No, well, me and Fox.
Oh, okay.
We all share the same sentiment about the Backcountry. It's the best board in Mervin's lineup, I would believe.
It should be called Powder Country.
No. Temple, Cannon.
Maybe you can make one called Pow Country.
Pete,
but
there we go.
Here's the great news. This year's a new year, and there's a new crop of stuff out. And who knows which company's going to blow my mind, and I'm going to ride the next board that's going to change my whole life.
So you were given one of these last year.
Yeah, I rode one of these last year at the end of the season. Jess Kamira came through because Johan didn't.
He didn't.
And she got me one of these things because I really want to try one. The hype is real. This board rides great. It's snappy.
Yes.
Like it's very, very snappy, and you have to be on your game. In the POW, you can kind of get away with it a bit, but as soon as you hit like a cat road or you take it to the resort, like this is not an intermediate board. This is like,
but it
really
doesn't get into the stiffness of the black snowboard to death. It's a little bit more...
It's poppy, springy.
Yes, but it's a little more, I found it a little more predictable and less... if I gave it energy, yes, it gives it back. But this one in POW, specifically, because of how light it is, that was what my favorite thing to do with. I mean, my favorite thing about the Megadeth was this in POW.
Yeah.
That light underfoot when you can just skip your turns, and man, very, very cool.
Speaking of bindings.
Yes.
Have you tried the Baldface Union bindings?
Yes.
They're the new Falcor with a solid high back on them. They're like
I think
the straps.
The tribute binding might have been better though.
I think the Baldface binding
the ultra
is a little more limited, a
though.
little more high end,
I don't know. I think we're pretty limited.
You know, into it. You know, I think we have like 20 pair.
I think we both need to thank that company for just taking damn good care of both of us. Union's awesome. They make good bindings.
Yeah, Blue's a great guy.
Yeah, the Blue.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, now we're gonna
We
get
love Johan
shit.
too. We love all those guys.
So we've kind of fumbled our way through our evolution of powder boards and what Jeff has seen through the lodge. When you go back over, well, Jeff, you're approaching 25 years because I've had you're getting there. Baldface is going to be 25 in what?
This year.
This year. So in all that time, I know, this is a lot. Describe to us, especially for people that haven't been there, describe to us, you know, the best day that you've stepped out of a cat.
Oh, God.
And what that board was underfoot and who those people were and what was your most impressionable riding moment at Baldface Lodge?
There's no way to answer that.
I know, that's a tough one. I have mine. I have a certain experience with me, you, CK, Fawcett, Buffery. I have mine, which was just early on when we were still touring the zone. But, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Shane, there's so many, and all of them are so special, and you know, you kind of hang on to different things for different. There's conditions, there's people, there's all of it, and I think that's one of my, you know, superpowers is I just get to be really present in that moment and really make each one of those moments like the best moment I've ever had. Hosting the Supernatural and Ultranatural were like pinnacle days. I didn't really snowboard that much on those days, but the joy and the vibe was like unbelievable. Riding with, you know, Craig was always really inspirational, amazing. Riding with Fawcett's always really fun to get out there. I ride with all these famous people and do all these things, and then also a guy like Dave Trask who comes out from New Hampshire every 3-4 years. I see him, he saves up his pennies and comes out, and the guy's the happiest motherfucker I've ever seen at the lodge.
That's awesome.
And I've got 30 of those guys that come out. So I can't really put a name on it because it's like it's so different. Riding with my kids out there, watching
that's where
Estelle,
I was,
Lucia,
yeah,
Enzo,
yeah.
Penny start to like get their legs, and watching Estelle really air it out now, and Lucia really wants to get into it, and like they enjoy it so much, and they have a different experience than I ever had with snowboarding. So, you know, there's just so much. It's so complex, and there's so much like water under the bridge in 25 years. I can't say like this was the day. I would say in my mindset now, like every day I'm up there is the best day I've ever had.
That's
I'm
well
living
said,
in
man.
the best
Yep,
day
well
because
said.
I'm grateful and fortunate enough to have put myself in the position to have the best day every day I'm up there. Even when the septic backs up and the generator shit the bed, the cat falls off the road, the heli doesn't get in.
The Acco trailer's
All
roof
that stuff.
collapse. Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's the mindset
there's
that we
been
all
some-
have to have is like be grateful for the challenges that are presented to you because somehow the great creator picked you because you can handle those challenges.
Well said, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well said. No, that's fantastic.
That's a way to not answer the question.
No, that was great. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us today. I really want to thank our sponsors, our presenters, Baldface Lodge. Obviously, Jeff has
That's
helped
how I got
us.
on the show.
That is not how he got on the show, but he's helped us keep the lights on, as has the great folks at Cole. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. It means a lot to us. You guys out there, every time you watch, every time you subscribe, like, tell a homie, it really helps the show. So again, thanks so much. Thanks for hanging. Jeff, thank you for hanging.
Yeah, it was great.
We'll do this again. We'll go on another tangent. And yeah, guys, see you on the next one.